Thanks, Leanne. So as I said, I'm Fiona. I'm the local councillor for Wishaw. So I'm your chair for tonight. So welcome everyone to November's meeting. We will go around all the organisations. It's going to be, obviously, there's quite a few of us on. So, and we'll put our names in the chat bar just now. We will come to agenda item 5, which is the community matters section. So at that point then, obviously, we would invite people to join in and give us an update on what your organisations are up to at that stage. But we do have a selection already on that I can see. So we've got Dan from Social Chat, we've got Douglas Fanell, Mary Partners in Play, Grant's here also from the NHS Lanarkshire, Robert's here from CLD. Apologies if I've missed everybody. Anyone is sorry. We've got a few of the local councillors on, so there's myself and Jim and Frank from Wishaw, and we've also got Nikki and Cameron up in the Murchison ward on as well, so apologies if there's anybody else. And I think we've also got Stuart from the Overton and Waterloo Community Council, so welcome everyone. So first thing I'll do is go to Vicky and ask if there's any apologies for tonight's meeting, please. Vicky Peacock.
Yeah, thanks, Fiona. Yeah, there's a few apologies tonight. Councillor Burgess, Councillor McKendrick, Councillor Rorty, and also Donna Wallace from Health from the NHS, but obviously Grant's here in her place, and Richard Bolton from Gary and People's Housing Association. And that's all that I've received.
No bother. So we'll move on to item 3 then. We've got the minutes of the previous meeting. And we're just looking for approval of the minutes. There was quite a comprehensive list of things sent out to you, so the minutes were in among those. So does anybody wish to, is there any problems with the minutes first of all? Anybody get any issues? Can we go on ahead and agree those minutes then? Can I have a proposer for the minutes? Any hands? I don't see any hands. Do we want first and seconders, Leanne, or do we just agree? Are you happy to agree, or nobody wants to put
Normally we would have somebody to propose and somebody just to say that they're quite happy, but so.
Here we go, Vicky, fabulous. And I think Frank's put his hand up and Mary's got their hand up as well, so you can take your pick for the minutes. That's thank you very much, guys. I could have proposed and seconded myself, couldn't I? I'm allowed to do that as chair. Anyway, so moving on, thank you for that. We're moving on to agenda item 4, which is the local priorities, and we've got Grant Murdoch with us from the NHS Lanarkshire Health Improvement Team. So again, there's been stuff sent out as well, but I'm sure Grant can talk us through all the information. So would Grant like to go ahead, and we can take some questions at the end if that's okay, Grant?
Thanks, everybody hear me okay?
Fabulous.
So we'll start off.
Before you start there, Grant, Mary, have you got your hand up, or is it just a legacy? Thank you.
That's me done it.
Thank you.
So looking at the local improvement, local outcome improvement plan, I always need to say that twice. For Wishaw, it's highlighted mental health and wellbeing as one of its priorities. As local people want to work with partners to ensure effective outcomes for people affected by any mental health issues. The actions is to investigate the level of current demand in the Wishaw area and work with partners to understand the current impact of COVID-19, undertake a mapping exercise of local organisations who support mental health work, ensure the Wishaw Community Board is represented on any NL-wide subgroup or other relevant structures, and to establish a subgroup to agree a local and community-led action. So as part of addressing this local outcome improvement plan, the priority for mental health, a subgroup has been recently created. The group was attended by GBT Shots, Slam H Cafe in Wishaw, NHS, the Community Mental Health Team for Older Adults, CL&D, Centrepoint, Made for You and ML2, and also the NHS Health Improvement Team, which is us as well. It was recognised that there has been an increased demand on NHS mental health services post-COVID and on our partner organisations as well. However, in some cases, attendance has been reduced at some health and wellbeing groups as individuals are not always accessing services as they previously did. The creation of a subgroup has highlighted that mental health and wellbeing provision is already available within the community, and the linking of these organisations was felt beneficial within the group. It was also felt that there were some barriers to accessing mental health and wellbeing services, and these were things like transport, availability of creche facilities so that parents can access the programmes that are held in certain centres, and also the ability of carers accessing services due to their caring commitments, and also in communities being unaware of what's available. So we discussed the possibility of a directory for mental health and wellbeing services, and we also discussed some of the self-help platforms, and we've included this information on Well Connected and Lanarkshire Mind Matters on the health improvement update, which has been sent in. However, it must be noted that these do not always replace professional support, but complement it, as it would then minimise individuals with poor mental health. So the subgroup has agreed to meet regularly, and we have meetings booked in until July next year, and dates have been put out if anyone would like to attend. So that's the 13th of January, the 3rd of March, 21st of April, 9th of June, and the 28th of July. And again, I'd like to take this opportunity to invite any of the board members to attend the subgroup meetings. You would be made very welcome on the group, because we look to have, I think what we're trying to do is merge Wishaw and Shotts in that, because a lot of the organisations are kind of linked together and do work across both localities. Obviously to save a lot of time as well, just to put things together. And also, again, just to add, the local improvement, the locality health improvement update has been sent to the board. And again, as you said earlier, I would welcome any questions that the board may have regarding the update. And if there's anything I can't answer tonight, then I'll make sure I get round to answering those and send the information back. Thanks.
Fabulous, thanks very much, Grant. Is there any questions for Grant? No? Well, you got off lightly, Grant.
Thanks all.
No, thanks for all your work. I actually did the assist suicide training a couple of weeks ago as well, which is fantastic, and it obviously covered a lot of the help and support in the groups and things that are out there, and there's so much going on in our local communities as well. But if anybody wants any help training, you can do an hour's course, you can do a 3-hour course. There's a 2-day assist course that I'm sure it's things that can get facilitated as well, if it would be useful for the board or the community to do if you haven't done already. But thanks for your time tonight, Grant. Thank you. So we'll move on to the community engagement part. So we have got, first up is Vicky, and Vicky's going to give us a wee update on the participatory budgeting for Coatness and Cleland. Is that right, Vicky?
Yeah, no problem at all. So a small funding opportunity that through participatory budgeting project that I've just kind of launched and opened up for any proposals for any small projects to come in. The project's got to be kind of around health and wellbeing, which kind of links into obviously what Grant was just talking about. So any kind of group or organisation that wishes to apply, they've got to be doing work in and around Coatness or Cleland, or Coatness and Cleland. It's just a small project that we're running just now. So as I say, I've just launched it the other day there. So anybody who wishes to get a proposal form can contact me direct, and I'll send it out, or contact Community Matters mailbox, and that'll get passed on to myself, and I'll send out the guidance forms and a proposal form for that. Have a good read at the guidance just to make sure that your project or your group meets with the criteria before going ahead and filling the proposal form in. And I can assist with any help if groups are looking to do it, small volunteer groups, but they're maybe a wee bit of assistance with the proposal form. I can also assist with that, and then they would send the proposal form back to me. Now, I've put a date of the 27th of January on that because of just kind of the festive period coming up. Make sure that groups have got enough time to have a wee look at that and get the proposal form well written before they send it in by then. Basically the offer is that it'll go to participatory budgeting, which is public vote. So once I get proposal forms in on that date, we'll see how many there is. There'll be a wee subgroup that will meet just to kind of narrow that down to the ones that all meet the criteria, and any relevant ones will go out to public vote through a survey, and that will give the local communities in Coatness and Cleland the opportunity to pick which ones they think are most needed within those communities, or that they would like to see happen in their communities. And basically there'll be 3 that will be able to receive funding for it. The first will receive, with the most votes, will receive £1,000 funding for their project, and thereafter the next 2 receiving the most votes will each receive £500 each towards their project. So it's good for local groups within those areas to get a wee bit extra funding for something that they're looking to do, a project that they're possibly already work they're carrying out, and they want to continue that good work that relates to health and wellbeing in their community. So I'm looking to just have already put the promotion for it out there, but if you know anybody on the board who's not heard about it or knows about groups in those areas, can certainly pass the information on. Any questions I can take as well on that.
Any hands up for Vicky? Any questions? Quite happy with that. You know you can contact her anyway, so if there's anything at all that... I thought Jimmy's hands up, but he's reaching for something, sorry. Okay, thanks Vicky. And next we have Douglas from the Van Ale to give us a wee update on the local network events.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, we've had a series of locality network events recently. We held our event in Wishaw and Shotts a week ago last Monday, which was really well attended. Our thanks to everyone who spoke at the event, and thanks to the NCT Centre for hosting this. They've proven to be really useful again. We've had really positive feedback so far, so we'll be looking to reschedule new dates again sometime in March or April next year. We've also attached a full update with the papers that were circulated to the board as to all the other activity that's gone on with Voluntary Action North Lanarkshire just now. So if you want to have a look at that, there's 1 or 2 other things that may well be of interest. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Douglas. And as Douglas said, that there was a report sent round with all the papers, so you can have a wee look at that if there's any questions. I think there's email address and things on that too. Any other questions for Douglas just now? Douglas is up next anyway, I think. So I'm going to invite him back to do. He's going to be doing today's information on digital inclusion and driving digital locally. So I'll just let you carry on with that then, if there's no questions. Thanks, Douglas.
Yes, there's a few developments around digital inclusion. I met with a representative from the Scottish Government last week. There'll be a new fund open in January as of next year, which will have a focus on digital inclusion, mental health and housing. So they're not quite sure yet how this is going to look. There's going to be more details released. I'll circulate them as soon as I have them in the new year. I've also been participating in the Driving Digital Locally group. That has met several times recently with Comsworld, and we've been going through various details of the agreement that Comsworld have with North Lanarkshire Council. We haven't quite got to the element around the community benefit yet, but that will be very much discussed in the near future, and again we'll update as we go along. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much. Any questions at this stage? I'm quite happy to move on. Leanne, is there anything you want to add? No?
No, I think Douglas has managed to cover everything there.
All righty, thank you very much. So we'll move on to community safety. So we've got representatives from the fire and police here today. Again, unfortunately Alan's not here tonight, but we do have a willing substitute. Stuart Murray's here, who is going to fill us in on the current, is it the Moto X project? If you want to carry on, that's great, thank you.
Inspector Mulholland, as you know, would normally conduct these types of briefings, so you'll have to bear with me. And the structure of the information that you get tonight might not be kind of in sync with what he provides. So Moto X is an initiative we have run on a monthly basis, which takes place in the Wishaw area. That will take place probably next week or the week after that for the month of December on a rolling basis. The location hasn't been identified yet, and it'll be dependent on competing demands, but we hope to have that in place at some point mid-December. I don't know if Inspector Mulholland has mentioned previously about the criminal use of the roads and use of quad bikes, off-road bikes, those types of things. I'm sure you've noticed those types of issues occur in the local area. Motorworks primarily will engage that type of activity, but also we use off-road bikes in the community police in Wishaw. We've got 2 off-road trained officers who will target that in between times. And also, I don't know if Inspector Mulholland has mentioned, we'll also have police quad bikes being delivered shortly. And officers will be trained in the use of quad bikes. So that will enable us to deter the use of those types of vehicles on the road that we see quite often just now. Typically trail bikes, quad bikes, those types of things. So we'll see that in the next 2 or 3 weeks as well. So don't be surprised to see police quad bikes operating in the local area as well. So in terms of Motorworks, that's that covered. Is there any other sort of information you would expect to be covered just in terms of police report?
Just any questions? Anybody got any questions they would like answered, or any concerns or any updates that you're looking for? Okay, we've got Mark from My Time, My Community. You want to go ahead, Mark?
Hi guys, hear me all right? Magic. Stuart, I was just to ask, did a wee bit of engagements with some guys up at the sort of tip of the industrial estate near almost like where Newhouse meets Eurocentral, and there was a plot of land there that was being essentially used by a number of guys who have got bikes, very much, I guess, all showing up in vans, kind of trying to keep to the rule of the law, but at the same time enjoy their sport and whatnot. And my understanding is that as it stands, that the police have, I guess, shown a certain amount of respect for how they're conducting themselves today, and also that the bit of land in question, I think, was potentially earmarked for development, but due to overhead pylons and a couple of other bits and bobs, I don't think it looks as though, certainly at this stage, that development on that particular sort of greenfield site's going to go ahead. So I was just wondering, I guess, if you knew anything about, you know, whether the police had any engagement, positive or otherwise, with people using motocross bikes, I guess, in that area. And I appreciate, you know, there's the kit there to go and chase the ones that are doing it illegally about the streets, but I guess in terms of meeting something like that positively, where it's starting to take on a bit more of an organised feel, you know, what's the police's view on supporting that kind of stuff?
100%. We would always support the use of those types of vehicles in identified areas. So if there's an area that's been selected for use, we would encourage that for off-road vehicles of any type. I certainly know there's a few places in South Lanarkshire. In terms of that one, I'm not familiar with that one. That would generally be covered by the Motherwell Board. But what I can do is I can link him with my counterpart and just ask him for a little bit of information regarding that and get back to you at some point. When we're doing engagement and education around about sort of enforcement, education would always follow the enforcement side. And it would be signposting towards legitimate areas where the bikes can be used safely and not on the public roads where it's basically dangerous. It's dangerous for pedestrians, other road users, and the users of the vehicles themselves. So we would absolutely be looking to support those types of initiatives, and it's definitely something I can have a conversation with the Motherwell CP for.
Yeah, magic, okay. And I guess along a similar line, I'd be more than happy to share my email if you're not able to access it, or give permission to Vicky or the chair to share my contact details. But I guess I was just wondering from a sort of local MSP and councillor's perspective as well, like, I think my understanding is, I tried to make some inroads into regards to who actually owns the site up there just now, but I wondered whether if it was something that was owned, you know, by the local authority in terms of almost like bringing a sort of deeper level of legitimacy. You know, I think up there, obviously, there's very little domestic, it's predominantly commercial, and there doesn't seem to be, you know, I guess given the fact that it's not flagged up here, perhaps tonight, or maybe at Motherwell as well, there's not necessarily much in the way of complaints about how the site's been accessed at this stage. So I'm just wondering if any of the councillors or MSPs would be in a position to, I suppose, comment on how they might, I suppose, support further development of that to create a safe space for this kind of stuff.
Certainly, this is over the Wishaw Town Board that it wouldn't cover up to Newhouse, so I'm not certainly aware of any issues, you know, up that direction. But if you want to give your details, Mark, I'll quite happily pass them on to the team, and we can pass it on to areas that might know more than we do. Leanne, is there anything else that you're aware of in that area?
Not straight away
James,
off the top of my
no.
head. I don't know if James
Yeah.
wants to go, but happy to, if he passes
No.
over details, Mark, will, as always, we'll look into.
Yep.
Yeah,
All
magic.
right,
No,
so
it was just because I think there's a number of guys that, you know, I spoke to a couple of older gents that, you know, really, some of them don't have kids of their own and they're really happy to support young people, and a couple of other young guys that, you know, were up there, excuse me, on a bike saying, you know, if it wasn't for the guys that they'd had a bit of help for to kind of bring them into the support, into the sport, you know, they'd be out in the street doing drugs and all manner of other stuff, you know, this is they're releasing their sport and they're thriving with it. So yeah, I think it'd be great to see if there's ways to support development of some sort of model and a safe space to do it. I appreciate it maybe doesn't geographically directly fall under the Wishaw board's responsibility, but I think maybe given the proximity.
Definitely. It's just obviously we're not aware of it, but it doesn't mean to say that if you pass on your details and
Definitely.
your inquiry, then certainly we can then signpost to relevant people to speak to and to have a look at that, Mark. Okay.
Yeah, by all means, I think it's obviously great that maybe it's not heard at this point, because that maybe it means it's positive so far.
Yes.
So
Well, it certainly hasn't filtered down, I don't think, to anybody on the Wishaw area by the looks of it. So that's good news. Is there any other questions for Stuart at this stage? No. I think Stuart, you're off the hook.
Yeah, no problem at all. Just in terms of kind of the wider issue, WOX is a kind of a part of what we do in the community police, and it's something that we cover on a rolling basis. But there is other work going on alongside WOX, focused on community safety, and certainly moving into the festive period, we will look to see increased high visibility patrols in the main street areas of Wishaw. We've been doing some work alongside Wishaw Antisocial on Pentland Road recently as a result of issues that occurred there. So we've had some results there over the last couple of weeks off the back of an operation with the housing last week. So we'd like to see an improvement there as well. Alongside kind of other aspects of community work that we're doing around youth disorder, certainly leading up to Christmas and over the school holidays. So that's things that we'll be kind of focusing on. So and supporting other kind of local community projects that are ongoing, certainly in the Saturday night project. So alongside WOX, there is a number of other things that we'll be actively engaged in. So if anybody's got any questions in relation to any of that, or anything they want to ask about any issue or something they want to point out for the local area, then feel free, I'll take note of it.
No hands. All right. So thanks again, Stuart, for the update. We are going to move on now to Graham. Now, no, Graham's also sent out a report to us for the kind of quarterly update with the all the information that was sent prior to the board. But I'd invite Graham now just to do his wee update and take any questions if possible.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. This is the first board I've been to. So my name's Graham Morrow and I'm the station commander responsible for Motherwell in the local area. As you kind of mentioned there, I've submitted my detailed Q2 report and I'm happy to take any questions on it. But just to kind of probably highlight a couple of key areas within there. Across the area, we've seen a decrease in the number of accidental dwelling fires. This is reduced from 8 in Q2 down to 5 this year in Q2. Mainly due to the kind of significant local safety engagement that our crews and our community action teams are carrying out within the local area. And again, I've highlighted quite a bit of that within my community board report. The flip side of that, unfortunately, we've seen an increase in deliberate fire setting across the area in the last quarter compared to the Q2 in the previous year, which has increased from 35 up to 53. And again, our community action teams and station personnel are kind of targeting this through our raising awareness within the deliberate fire setting. And quite significantly over the kind of lead up to bonfire night, where our crews went out and visited every primary school and secondary school within the area, again just to deliver that detailed fire safety advice. Yeah, so I mean, as I say, everything's in my report and I'm happy to take any questions that the board may have.
Thank you for that. I know my children certainly came home from high school and told me all about your talks up at the high school about the fireworks, so it certainly was hitting home and getting the message across. Any other questions? Leanne's got her hand up. You want to come in, Leanne?
It's not a question, Chair, so if anybody's got any questions first, it was just a supplementary to this agenda item.
No problem. No. Thank you. Sorry, Leanne, I'll let you come in now.
No, it's okay. It was just to make a more kind of general point around how we're reporting on the local outcome improvement plan priorities that you're seeing coming through the agenda now, and just to provide a wee bit of an update that we now have a kind of dedicated way that we as public sector partners and officers meet around the LIPE priorities to make sure that we're all focused in on those, and that these subgroups that you'll start to see emerging and things are part of that whole process. We now have one shared performance framework as well that across all the public sector agencies we're now all feeding into around updates in relation to the LIPE priorities, and that's what's feeding and it'll evolve and get better as we move forward, but that's what's feeding the updates that will be coming to the community board from the partners. But obviously the work that will be happening within communities will very much be with the local voluntary organisations and with community organisations, but I suppose just in terms of us having one shared tool in place that we share that information and have discussions in relation to what we need to do to support communities. So it was just to provide that update and to say that what we've been saying it for a while now, but hopefully you're starting to see the information coming through a bit more clearly related to the LIPE priorities on the agenda, and we're also reporting updates. They'll be going to the North Lanarkshire Partnership Strategic Leadership Board, which is the chief executives of all the public sector agencies. The reports in relation to the LIPes will be going there and to council committees. So it was just to kind of clarify that, and what we were proposing maybe to do at the next meeting is maybe show people how that works, so that you can see, and in terms of you being able to have that discussion and debate with the key officers around specific priorities and making sure that that's filtering down and kind of playing out in local communities, and that you're seeing that on a more kind of grassroots level. So just to say, we'll probably bring something that gives a wee update to the next meeting, and hopefully you're starting to see the updates kind of strengthening throughout the agenda.
Thanks for that, Leanne. Okay, we've got Mark's hand up. Do you want to come in? Mark, have you got a question?
Yeah, hi, Fiona. Just one for Leanne and a quick one for Graham as well. Graham, in terms of the fires, has there any particular areas in the Wishaw locality that's been particularly badly hit by the increase in instances that you've seen?
Off the top of my head, no. I would need to delve further into the figures, but just for the board's awareness, there is 5 shifts within Motherwell, and each of them have a different locality that they're responsible for. So it's each individual watch officer within the station, they would target the areas, and if there was anything to highlight, then they would bring it to my attention. But certainly at this stage, there's no sort of anything to report that's been brought to my attention.
No worries. And the other question for Leanne was, Leanne, I think what you were saying there about I haven't seen, I guess, the new format for how you're linking back to the LIPE. But so I think it'd be great, obviously, to do a session on that. So I'm great to see you volunteer that. I guess my question around that is there anything in that sort of offers any sort of matrix in relation to sustainability or carbon reduction?
Chair, do you want me to just come back on that? Yeah, so the kind of tool that I'm talking about is very much a management tool. It's very much about focusing us as officers and making sure that we are supporting local communities collectively, and that the work that sits, so the framework's really just for us to be feeding in and sharing information and making sure that when we're setting up subgroups, etc., that information's all feeding back through into our organisations. But it does feed the reporting process here. But the information and the work on the ground is very much through local subgroups and working with local community groups and voluntary organisations. That's where the work will happen collectively. In terms of kind of carbon reduction and the whole sustainability, so the framework that we're talking about is related to the LIPE priorities, and in Wishaw and actually across North Lanarkshire, across the 9 community board areas, kind of the sustainability, carbon reduction, you know, the kind of climate priorities didn't come out strongly as standalone priorities, but they absolutely are reflected across a number of priorities. So what we've done is at the start of each of the LIPes, for each of the 9 community board areas, we've made sure that there's a kind of section in there that reflects the importance of that agenda to make sure that all of the priorities are linking in and supporting delivery of that agenda. So absolutely, while it isn't a standalone priority for Wishaw, it's clearly coming out across other priorities. And there is a partnership Act Now plan, and there's obviously the council's targets, etc. And I think a lot of the work that will be happening on the ground over sustainable active travel, sustainable behaviours within communities, food growing, a whole number of different projects that are happening within communities absolutely support that agenda, and we'll make sure that that's reflected through the performance and monitoring frameworks aligned to the community boards and the priorities for their areas.
Okay, so essentially there's no specific target, but what you have done is try to, I guess, embed it as a priority within each of the other elements that are arising.
Yeah, it's a priority across North Lanarkshire, and there are specific targets that the council has and that the community planning partnership has set. I suppose what I'm saying is at a local level, it didn't come out strongly as standalone priority, but it came out quite clearly across. So we'll be making sure that we're feeding into those. Any activity at a local level is feeding into the performance measures at that more strategic level.
And the performance stuff that you're measuring against, is that specifically in relation to like the council's like carbon reduction targets in terms of the direct services it provides, as opposed to like, reducing the environmental impact of residents living within a geographic area as a whole, if that makes sense?
I think, to be honest, in terms of, well, all of the work that we're all doing collectively are ultimately working towards achieving those bigger targets. But in terms of the localised work, I think that's where we're at right now, is working up the detail of that and kind of mapping that out and kind of saying, right, well, what activities and projects are happening at a local level? What are they contributing to? What will be our measures of success? Because some of these are big long-term measures, and actually some of the things that we're doing at a local level, we might be able to measure impact on smaller groups of people or over a shorter term period. So I think there's still a bit of work to be done to work up the detail of that.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. I think sustainability is such a broad and confounding thing. I think people are trying to understand what local action means to them on these issues in their own localities. So yeah, I totally appreciate where you're coming from in that regard. But yes, definitely something we're keen to engage on.
Bringing it back and giving us a bit more detail at the next meeting. So thanks for your clarification, Leanne. So that's fab. And I've seen James's hand up as well if you want to come in.
Yeah, just to let the board we know that one of the roles I have in the council is I'm actually a climate challenge champion for the council. So just to build on some of the things that Leanne has said there, is the council does have targets for its emissions. So since 2015-16, we've reduced our emissions by 47%. I'm doing that from memory, so I might not get the figure exactly correct, but it's between 45 and 50, and I'm pretty sure it's 47%. During the year of COP26, we also ran a number of events. We ran 3 events. The first one was around about May of last calendar year, and that was for it was a bit of an internal event within the council, so that all officers and managers knew the challenges that were ahead, and we got to get people to buy into that. The second event we had was in August, September of last year, and that was with local businesses. And then the third and final event we had, which was on the eve of COPs, was with young people. We had 3,500 young people involved in an online event across North Lanarkshire on climate change. And in that event, we got them to run the event and present to there's a lot of councillors, for example, on that event. So we got them to present to the councillors and officers in the council how important that the climate change agenda is. We also work, and they work with us very closely, Van El, who are on the call tonight, and they've taken on what we've called Act Now initiative, and they've built on that. Just as recently as last week, we had an energy summit with 2 of the biggest energy suppliers, Scottish Power and Scottish Gas. As to what the area was, it was a pan Lanarkshire. It was North Lanarkshire and South Lanarkshire. What Lanarkshire could do to help them with investment in renewable energies. Just recently, last week, our housing department won an award for the energy initiatives in the housing stock. We do have a target within North Lanarkshire Council to get to net zero. We've made a lot of good progress to date. To be honest with you, it's going to be harder to maintain that progress going forward, but we're looking at that at the present time because the costs are higher and some of the infrastructure is not available there for us to do that as well. Mark, you asked the question about performance. We on an annual basis, all local authorities have to report their performance on carbon emissions. It is on local authority assets, but we also work with the private sector as well to try to see what we can do in that area as well. And just in relation to the LOIP, which Leanne mentioned there is an environmental theme within the LOIP, and the sort of carbon management, climate change is included within that theme. But if you wanted to, maybe through Leanne, if you wanted more information, if you just pass on your details, I could certainly get some information out to you. For example, if you were interested in a copy of the Council's Climate Action Plan, which was presented to Council Committee in February of this year.
Yeah, I think it'd be really useful to see that, James. And I know I'm aware of the stuff that Van L's doing, but in terms of like, if in the Wishaw area there was a clear drive by citizens to move towards sustainability, how do you feel? How do you feel the board or I guess the agenda that you're responsible for there could further support the development of that, so that they're working really closely together?
Well, how the board could work in that and how residents and community groups can work in it as well is, I think what we need to do is we need to keep stressing the importance of the climate change agenda. I mean, in the challenging times we're in at the moment, it's harder to keep that at the top of the sort of priority list, but to some extent it needs to be up near the top of the priority list because the prices we're seeing in gas and electricity. So I think the performance structure that Leanne's mentioning there, I think, Leanne, we need to have a look at it. We need to have a look at to see how we feed back on each of the priority areas that are in the Wishaw LOIP, and maybe it's time to have a look at that environmental theme and see if it could be kind of teased out a bit, and maybe there should be a climate theme that comes out of it. But what we need to do is we need to build on the work that, for example, the young people are doing in schools. They're stressing this as important to us. So the Wishaw board, Wishaw residents, this would apply across to all of North Lanarkshire. So if you take the construction of new houses, for example, you might get 10 new houses, but if you want them to be carbon neutral, you might get 8 of houses. So I think if we were to get that feedback from communities, that would help the council set its policy direction going forward, I think.
Yeah,
Thanks, James. That's really useful to hear. Thank you. And Leanne has, and thank you also to Douglas, who have put the links in the chat as well to some relevant information there as well. Dan, you wanted to come in? Dan Scott?
Thanks, Fiona. Yeah, I was just on Mark's comments about climate change and carbon reduction and all that sort of stuff. I'll be speaking with Smarter Choices Paths for All, who do a lot of the Transport Scotland for active travel. I'll be speaking to them tomorrow about future projects in Wishaw. The funding that Social Track has had is just about to finish for the Wishaw area, so I'll be looking to bring that up, especially as we see addressing climate change and addressing a lot of issues relating to poverty as the same answers to those questions. So yeah, we'll be bringing that up with them. So just putting that in there to let Mark know that there is people in the community that are doing something.
Dan, can I ask?
Thanks for that, Dan. Sorry, Mark, you went back in?
I was just going to ask if Chair, in relation to speaking to Paths for All, Dan, what's the kind of nature of the discussion there? And I guess just to feed into that a little bit, we'd held a One Wishaw event that would, for it as a sort of launch event at Halloween in the Gout Thrapple area. We themed it around Halloween, and we were inviting sort of local people within Gout Thrapple and just beyond to come down, I guess, and enjoy the opportunity for a free meal through some funding that would source through a participatory budgeting process. But really using it as an opportunity to do a bit of public consultation around about what do people see as moves towards a mixture of a better Wishaw and a more sustainable Wishaw. And even within that, Dan, we were seeing stuff coming up around about, I think Leanne was speaking earlier on about the confounding nature of this and how difficult it is to deal with across all different threads of society, but really it sits within them all. So we've got people for Gowthrapple coming forward saying that, they want the path network to their local school or access to the town centre from Gowthrapple to be much improved, as an example now, or they're looking to access local services for youth work and stuff like that at a local level again. And some of the people that were asking about that kind of youth work are currently travelling to the East End of Glasgow to go to places like Baltic Street Adventure Playground. So I think even something like that, like reducing their journeys or allowing them to walk, their kids to school or the kids to take themselves, or to be able to go up the town with a pram and walk, all of these things I guess will feed into sustainability, but it's almost as though sometimes the people that are speaking about it don't even necessarily realise that it sits within that agenda. It's about how we start to join these bits up. So that's the reason for posing the question, Dan, is almost how do we start to further evolve that conversation with the community and let people describe sustainability in their own words almost.
Thanks for that, Mark. I mean, I'm obviously very conscious of time as well. I'll let Dan come back in. It's a really important topic, and it's something we will revisit again at the next meetings, and even a subgroup, as James says, we can go back and look at the Lloyd priorities as well. Dan, do you want to come back in?
Yeah, the meeting is actually just a confirmation meeting about funding that we've got for a project in Bells Hill. But I'm sure Wishaw will be brought up in the conversation soon as the fund projects there at the moment. So that'll be brought up with them. So essentially, I'll be looking at where that goes forward. They don't always repeat funding year on year, and after a certain amount of years, they tend less and less to fund projects. So as much as social track has been very effective and very successful, it's no guarantee that they're going to fund it again in Wishaw. So it's something that I want to bring up with them. And we focus mostly on young people, but we are looking at adults and older adults projects as well. So we will be doing that. But yeah, it will be about the Smarter Choices, Smarter Places funding. Will be what it's about. So,
cheers, Dan.
Thanks, Dan. And great points, Mark. And it's certainly something we will revisit. And it's really important that we have. The whole point with the community board is that we are a community, and that's why we're coming together and putting our questions in. So we want to focus on that. So that's fantastic. Thank you. So just to wrap up the community safety then, thank you for your reports. And thanks, Graham, for sending that through in advance as well, because it makes interesting reading as well, even the visits that you've done in the home safety visits and things. So have a wee look at that, guys, if you haven't done so already. And thanks to Stuart, Graham, and also I think Grant's still on the call as well. So don't feel free if you need to go, because I know you're very, very busy, but you're more than welcome to stay and hear what's going on in the community as well. So we are going to move on to the bit that is important, which is the community matters bit, because that's when we learn from each other and find out what's going on. I'm going to just go to the two updates first, and then we will go round and we'll bring in all the different community groups who want to do their updates, if that is okay. So Mark King is on the call to give us a wee update on the traffic and the safety issues in Alexander Street, which is so having been a councillor now for 5.5 years, this is a project that obviously we've all been waiting for. With the crossing points and all the things going on in Alexander Street is really important, and I'm certainly welcoming all the updates for Alexander Street that Mark's going to fill us in with. So you can go ahead, Mark. You still there? Can you hear us? What we'll do is we will maybe go to Councillor Mackay, and then we can jump back to Mark if he's having issues. Frank's wanting to talk about the increasing graffiti in Wishaw, which I know is also a big problem, and Stuart might want to come in about the Overton and Waterloo Community Board. It's a thing that's raised there a lot. Okay, so Frank.
Can you hear me, Fiona? I'm new at this. Wait a minute. Chat. No. Can you hear me, Fiona?
We can hear you.
Can you hear us?
Can you hear me now? Right,
We can all
okay.
hear you. Yep.
This is the first I've ever done this, so the thing that's been annoying me driving about the whole of Wishaw and Motherwell is the amount of graffiti that's appearing everywhere, and they don't seem to be anything happening about it. Now, it looks as if, to me, it's the same few people is doing the exact same thing all the time. So, and it's getting more and more obvious and more blatant where they're doing it. And it doesn't see that anywhere they're a dark space, they put a billboard up down in Pickering's Corner, and within a week they'd spray painted the whole lot of it. So it's as if these guys have got a free hurl in doing all this. And that's just one thing. The other thing, as I brought up at one of the committee meetings, is the removal of the dog poo bins. They've removed these dog poo bins. One of those blaring places is in Loch Park, next to the St Aidan's and Wishaw Academy Primary School. They've took is it three bins, 3 or 4 bins away, and never left any. The people are walking, they're lifting the poo, putting it in bags, and they're throwing it down where the bin used to be. Now, why put bins out there and take them all away and not replace even one? I mean, it's absolute madness, and so that's one thing. The other main complaint I've had, I believe they've went up and done it, it's up in the graveyard, the state of Cambersnethan graveyard. The bins have got in it, and they've used the excuse. The reason that they've got their open top bins is so as when people clean their graves, they can put wreaths and that in it. That's a load of nonsense. That is an absolute. I've never heard of an excuse like that in my life before, and that's why so it's open top. The wind comes, blows everywhere. They never lift the mess. It's just they're needing to start paying more attention. That Cambersnethan cemetery is a money pit. If you see the amount of money the council must make out of Cambersnethan cemetery, and they're not cleaning it, you get into where the baby wall is. That is another disgrace. It's just been put up and left. There's something needing done with this graffiti. The way they've removed all these poo bins and then Cambersnethan cemetery, and there's a lot more I could go on, but I think that's enough for now. That's just main things that people have been getting at me. That's the 3 main things. So I'll leave it there for you. Thanks, Fiona.
No problem. I think that's something obviously that we can take on board and move forward with and just keep pushing that, Frank, because I know that, I don't know if Stuart wants to come in, but I know that I've been reporting similar issues to get cleaned, and there is a lot of graffiti down in the Overton and Waterloo area as well. That has been talked about basically on a monthly basis at the board. So if there's anything we can do on the board or get together as councillors, then I think we should be happy to do that. Can I just say there, sorry as well, if Mark is there, the councillors did have an update on Alexander Street, which I am quite excited about during the week. So if Mark wants to come back in a wee minute, I understand that he's not one of the council officers that I thought he might have been. So apologies from me. We'll come back to that in a wee minute. So just a couple of hands are up just now. We'll deal with that first, and then we'll come back to Alexander Street. Stuart, did you want to come in? I don't know if your hand was up there.
So I've just taken note of all that information. I'll pass it to the community officers for the area and get them to have a look at that area specifically. See if we can identify any kind of places that have been used commonly for that type of activity. And if there's anywhere else apart from the location I've got noted here, feel free just to send that to me at the community police in Wishaw, and we'll have a look at it. Also, there's a graffiti removal facility that the council will provide in terms of getting graffiti removed in various areas. But first and foremost, I'd like to kind of just pay that bit of extra attention to prevent it in the first place. But let me pass it to the community officers, and we'll have a look around about those general locations, see if we can start ball rolling on that.
Thanks very much for that, Stuart. That's really useful. you to hear. I know that I've liaised with Alan Mulholland about the similar issue, so the community police were involved in past, because we did have issues with antisocial behaviour in Overton as well from the high school, and that's where there's a lot of the graffiti and down at the local church as well. So anything, you know, that can be done, that would be absolutely fantastic. Thanks for bringing that forward, Frank. Mark, your hands up.
Yeah, it was just, I guess, sort of resonating with what Frank was saying. I don't know if you can read that, but that was us. When we had our event last week, we had a, forgive the shoddy pun, a wish tree where you could hang your wish for wishes on, and clean up after your dog was one, but there was at least another two that was relating to dog fouling and cleanliness and safety of the path network around that. So I think it's definitely something that is a priority, not just for councillors, but actually the residents are picking up on it as well.
Thank you, and it's certainly something I'm sure all the councillors would say in all areas, that especially with the transfer of the bins at the moment, then it's been a real issue as well. Stuart?
Yeah, I was just going to add on the graffiti front. It is a continuing conversation, but just a point of clarity in terms of the council removal service. I think we've previously been informed that it only gets removed if it's offensive. Is that correct?
I'm not sure. I don't know if James can come in and clarify that. I've not necessarily been told that. It might not be a priority.
I don't think that's correct. It's not my own service area, but what I can do is I can check. But I don't think it's correct, but it may be the case that if it's offensive, it would be treated as a priority.
Yeah. I think that's my understanding as well, yeah. Cameron saying yes, that's true. Stuart, did you want to come back in there as well, Stuart Murray?
Just to confirm that, they will prioritise offensive, racial and sectarian graffiti, but they won't discount general graffiti. It will be removed, but it won't be prioritised the same way.
Yeah. Thanks for clarifying. Thank you. Okay, so we are going to move back to Alexander Street again. My apologies for misunderstanding. Mark, do you want to come in and just give us a wee update, and then I'm going to invite Jim Hume to come in also. Just he's looking shocked. Why are you looking shocked, Jim? To come in and just give us a wee update on the, because I'll put my hands up. I have had a wee update on it, but I didn't. I was actually working and didn't actually attend the meeting with other councillors. I had a wee info night in my own. So Jim can probably give you a wee update on the Alexander Street development. I don't know if Mark wants to come in or you just want to hear the update. It's been an ongoing issue. I know in Alexander Street, obviously, we had the unfortunate death on that blind spot within Alexander Street, and I've also had many an email about it. And I've also been down there taking groups with kids, and we can't cross the road. We were looking at, it's been raised on a number of occasions regarding safety and safe walks to school routes for children and getting across the roads. Disability groups who just can't get across the road, users of the sports centre. So it is something that councillors have been looking at for a number of years, and there's obviously been some development. So I'll let Jim come in and give us a wee update for that. And thanks also, Gary's just put in the chat bar the link to the graffiti, so you can have a wee look at that. So if you need your graffiti removal, it's in the chat bar now, the link. Jim?
Thanks. Here's what the plans are. The funding hasn't, the contract hasn't been agreed yet to deliver it, but if I'll try and remember everything we were told from the Heathery roundabout. There's going to be a pedestrian crossing with lights across Alexander Street, and a pedestrian crossing with lights on Netherton Street to allow people to go to the hospital walking. They're going to upgrade the path there, so that's a safe walking route for that, people walking to hospital or coming back from the shops or whatever. There is a island, pedestrian crossing island just further up from that at the Bad Bend. The council spoke to the arboriculture people, and they think the trees beside the football club are end of life, so they could clear that up a bit, which will help the lights and help the visibility. They're looking at some work being done at the exit from the football field to see if they can make that bend safer. There's another island further up Alexander Street. There are another set of traffic lights, crossing lights just before the entrance into the sports centre. There's a mini roundabout just before the bridge on the way up to Tesco. From the station, there's a set of lights there for pedestrian crossing, and the path at the other side of the road from the station, they're going to improve that on the walkway down to make it a walkway down from the station to the sports centre, and then the upgraded paths there. All the pavement along Alexander Street on the left-hand side going from the Heathery, that'll be made into a minimum of 3-metre path, and that'll be an active travel path for cyclists and pedestrians. So they've tried to do everything, I think, that we've been asked about. They've put crossings in, both crossings with lights and islands. They're trying to make that bad bend much more visible for motorists and more better lit. And they've made the pavement. They're upgrading that to make sure it's a proper path for active travel for cyclists and pedestrians. I think that's everything. The timescales will be, presuming the contract's approved, January to March or something like that. Provided the weather allows it to start. So there'll be some work there. There may be even be some intrusion with temporary lights and things like that to allow the work to be completed. But that's the plans so far.
Thanks, Mark. I see your hands are up there and you've got the thumbs up, so I'm presuming that's hopefully answered your question. And apologies for before, but I was quite excited because for us, even as councillors, and having taken lots of complaints over the years and having cycled along there with kids, then it is a matter that we are certainly glad to see progressing. So if I've put my email address into the chat bar as well, so Mark, if there's anything else at all, just give me ping me a wee email or drop me a wee line, and we can certainly deal with that if there's anything else that you want to bring up that you don't want to mention just now. Dan, can I invite you to speak? You get your hand up.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I'm just that's welcoming news to know that there's going to be improvements made in Alexander Street. It's as much as there's not houses on it and it seems pretty quiet, it's actually quite a it's never empty, that's for sure. There's always people using it, and it's a big one for potential future developments as well. The Belty, I don't know where we're at, and I don't even want to open the can of worms of Wishaw Community Hub, but if there's possibly going to be a new school down that area, all these things are going to matter, and these things really matter for Wishaw General. Wishaw General is the single largest place of employment, definitely in Wishaw, if not in Lanarkshire. So it's it's a big factor. I think that it really ties in with a lot of the work that we do. What Fiona's talking about, I mean, the kids that go cycling. I mean, Thornley Primary has over 100 pupils engaged in cycling projects every single year, and they're trying to teach those young people to be active travellers, and they're actually brilliant, to be honest. They're excellent, and the model that they have in Thornley Primary is, we'll be talking about it next week at an active travel conference. It's the whole of Scotland. So it's nice to see that those things that are missing, and infrastructure is massive. It's just not there. Anybody that's been to Europe knows that it's everywhere, and Scotland is decades behind the way it is in Europe. So it's great to see these things happen. Essentially, that's all I'm saying, that it's great. The thing that I would hope, though, is that if faults are found, that they will favour active travel, not favour roads and not favour cars. You know, if people say, "Oh well, it means that it's harder to drive into Wishaw," good. This, in my opinion, and you know, we need a change if we want to survive another 100 years in Wishaw. We need to make a difference, you know. Anyway, that's me being hyperbole, but yeah, I welcome this, and I hope that there'll be a chance for discussion if any of this stuff needs to be addressed again in the future.
Thanks, Dan.
Can I
Mark, you want to come back in? Oh, sorry.
Can I just add?
Yep.
Dan mentioned infrastructure there, and the council's got real aspirations in active travel, but they're facing so many obstacles. I'd said at the meeting it would be great if Alexander Street could continue up Heathery Road and meet with the footpath at the golf course all the way down to Ravenscraig. You know, a continuous path that way would be really useful. But if you think of, I know there's some changes being planned for the Lidl building, but the railway bridge really makes it difficult to expand that. But they'll look for opportunities all the time, Dan. It's just there are so many obstacles in the way of doing what seems logical, looking at it at the outside. So aspirational, they'll do what they can when they can.
I think that's the impression that I've definitely got. We've been quite heavily involved with the Strathclyde Park developments over the last couple of years, and that comes through all the time, that they're thinking about active travel. They're thinking about how these things link up communities, and a lot of the times the answers are already there. It's paths that have been there for centuries sometimes, and it's just I personally think it's the populace's behaviours are what really need to change. You know, the infrastructure is actually all there if there wasn't the cars on the road. You know, if these roads were originally made for horses and trams and bikes, not cars. So if you know, sustainable transport was what they were designed for originally. So it was, if it was back to that, we wouldn't have the issue. So yeah, I'll get off my soapbox on that one.
Mark, you wanted to come in?
It was just to ask, in terms of the changes that were described there, is that something that's now part of like the sort of, in terms of understanding it visually, is it part of the New Town Centre action plan where you can actually get a scene feel for what that looks like? And I guess around about that theme, I know Dan had mentioned the talk about of development of the hub. In terms of the changes that have been made there, you know, are those mapped against the potential of a future hub in terms of saying, well, what's the actual right placement for them, based that if the hub then goes in, that obviously kind of remaps the entire area. So those two things that come to mind. So that's one thing that I was thinking about. And I guess the only other thing, maybe specifically to Jim, you'd mentioned there about the removal of trees in that area and them being described as end of life. And I guess if we're talking about sustainability, trees is something that comes up quite a lot. So, you know, what's the council's, I guess, process and stance in terms of deciding whether you know, a tree should be taken out and removed, I guess?
You want me to go over them, Fiona?
Jim, if you can answer that, and I know James is possibly poised there as well. Maybe I put him on the spot, I don't know.
Trees, the council are very careful. I mean, if you look at any planning requests, it's one of the things that's considered. But it doesn't mean to say that every tree in the world is beneficial being where it is. In fact, if you remember the fence outside the football park, quite a few trees have collapsed and damaged the fence. So, you know, like everything else, trees have end of life, and that's the tree professional gave his opinion that those trees could be removed. I'm not aware, maybe someone can correct. I'm not aware of the council having a policy of if you cut a tree down, you need to plant one somewhere else. That might be something we could consider. But just because a tree is there and has been there for 80 or 100 years, you know, there's no guarantee it's still safe or worthwhile being where it is. In terms of the town centre hub, this is planned as part of active travel. the town centre hub, I don't think for Wishaw is in near plans, Mark. When we lost the first bid, Wishaw was going to be the first one, and it didn't make it past the Scottish Government. There's no plans, no definite dates for reintroducing the Wishaw hub. So that Beltane site isn't the guaranteed location. So if it becomes the whole road situation will be reviewed then. So the town centre action plan, we've had a couple of iterations of that, but that's very much here's what could happen, here's what our ideas are, turned it more residential than shopping, because retail shops are struggling and on the way out in lots of cases. This particular work for the active travel isn't part of the town centre action plan as far as I'm aware. I hope James isn't going to correct me there.
James is going to come in anyway. Yeah, just to reiterate what Jim said there, I know that previously we lost a lot of trees and the road was closed and a lot of trees fell and a lot of them were diseased, and hence why they were becoming unsafe. So they've obviously been assessed as a safety issue as well at the end of life. So, but I'll let James come in.
A few things. The first thing in relation to trees, the council does have a tree management plan that was approved by committee earlier this year. It's an environmental asset service that is responsible for that plan. Just a few things. I'm going from memory here, so apologies if I don't get it all absolutely correct. But as Councillor Hume says there, in terms when planning applications come in, the whole green space around about a planning application is looked at. And for example, if there was going to be a development, whether it's housing development or industrial development or a school or whatever, if there's trees on that site, that would have to be replicated elsewhere within the area. One of the challenges we've got with trees in North Lanarkshire and indeed across the country is disease, which is becoming more prevalent in trees, and that's getting looked at the present time as to how many trees would have to be in this area to kind of withstand the loss of trees from disease. And there's quite a lot of disease going about at the moment. So, and again, as I mentioned earlier, Mark, in terms of climate action plan, there's a whole environmental part of that, the climate action plan in there as well. So it looks at trees and other biodiversity issues as well. The town action plans were mentioned there a couple of times. It's my understanding that there's going to be a consultation period for the Wishaw town action plan starting early in the new year. I think it'll be January, and that will run for about 6 weeks in the local library, and information will be there. There'll be also officers for 2 days a week from the growth team will be there as well to look at what could happen in Wishaw going forward. That'll include things like looking at the high street and the retail offer that's available at the moment, looking at all the gateways into the town centre, which the traffic around the Wishaw has already been covered quite a bit this evening, and also looking at how, and talking about active travel there as well, and how that would link into a future town hub. But I'm going to leave the future town hub at the moment, because I'll pick that up later on when I come in and give my update on things and that as well. So all these points that have been getting discussed, they are in the council's plans and their ambitions going forward. But again, just to come back to a point Mark made earlier on, the more that communities come back to us through community boards and elsewhere, and stressed us these are the priorities that they want the council to be looking at, that helps us move forward in the local areas. Appreciate that sometimes that could be like trying to do a 360 turning an oil tanker, because there's so much that needs to be done, and the level of resources we've got as well. But keep feeding these things into us.
I'll certainly do that. James, obviously, I think we trees appreciate that some of them will have a lifespan, but I think if they're healthy, then we should be doing our best to retain them. And I think as well, there's an element of these things, much like some of the older buildings around the Wishaw area and beyond in North Lanarkshire, that it's a part of it's almost a part of the familiarity and the heritage, and contributes to almost placemaking in some ways as well. So it's not just, I guess, a sustainability concern that we're addressing there. I think it's multifaceted, but yeah, it's interesting to hear your responses and that these things are taken into consideration.
100%, Mark, and I know that having previously been on the planning committee, then there's numerous tree preservation orders come through planning to make sure, you know, we are protecting the woodlands. And Gary, thank you for putting that in the chat. There is Gary Stark has just put in the chat another link to the biodiversity and trees, one of the policies from the council. So thanks for doing that, and you can have a wee look at that. Okay, we're moving on to what I see is one of the most important. Obviously, everything we talk about at the board meeting is important, but we are now moving on to community matters, and it's handing over to you guys and all the community groups that are here, because we really need to network. We need to find out what you're all up to, share our ideas. So what I need you to do is volunteers in the chat bar who wants to go first. If there's anybody that does you don't have to speak, there's no pressure, but if there's any of the community groups here who want to give an update of what they're doing at the moment, feel free to get your name in the chat bar, and we'll just, or put your hand up, and we'll take you, and you can give a wee update to what your local organisation's doing just now. All the hands are up there. Jane, do you want to come in first, please? Only because Dan's already spoken, so you can go first if that's all right. Ladies first.
Absolutely. I'll just jump in. Can you hear me all right? I'm using my AirPods, so I'm not sure if the sound's coming through. Yeah, right, brilliant. So Jane Wood from the NCT Centre. Just a very quick update for us. So we, this just at the kind of a middle path of last month, launched our Cosy Club for the Warm Bank. Gary, who's on the call, very kindly facilitated us changing our times, because we'd got a wee bit of feedback from our local community that the times we had selected were a wee bit too late for people who didn't want to come out. So we've shifted that forward. 3 people in tonight in the last couple of nights as well. So that's kind of a proof that we were kind of going in the right direction. So we're delighted to launch that. The guys got free pizza tonight from the chip shop across the road. So the staff that we were leaving as they were coming in, we were like, oh, hold on a minute. So they were lucky enough to get that. As Douglas said, we were really chuffed to host the Van Els networking event as well. So that was a great success. And I'm really pleased to have launched that. On a kind of a personal note for our trustees, we're currently going through a bit of a recruitment drive. So if anybody thinks that they would like to join our board of trustees, if there's anybody, you know, any sort of community spirited person, anybody that's from one of our partners, if there's something you're interested in, I can put my email in the chat, and then you can just give us a wee email. They're currently going through recruitment just now, so if there is anybody that's interested in that. And that's it, that's all we've got tonight. Thank you.
Thanks for the update, Jane. Dan, do you want to come in? Social track?
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I just I wanted to let everyone know that we will be starting working in the horribly named Clyde Valley cluster of schools. I hate all these lovely buzzwords that they give these things in the council. So we're going to be working in with the cluster schools, which is Clyde Valley High, Newmains, Muirhouse, Netherton, Morningside, Wishaw, Thornley Primary, and Berry Hill, and I've probably forgotten somebody in there. Basically, our programme that we've been doing, like I said, in Thornley Primary, we're in 5 years in Thornley Primary now, but we're actually going to be spreading that across Wishaw, so we're really excited about that. It's a big change. There's lots of things that are kind of happening in the background that we're trying to find funding for, especially working with younger people and school age. But we've also just started a wee programme that we're calling Bikes and Blether on a Tuesday. We're up at Centre Point up in Gowthrapple. Basically from after 1 till 4, we're basically just saying come in and a kind of our own version of the warm places idea. Just come in, grab a digestive and a cup of tea and have a chat, and encouraging people to bring along their bikes if they want some help and setting them up and all that sort of stuff. I will be looking to see how I can work with other youth groups and statutory and non-statutory in the area when we're working in the schools. We're looking at how we can implement more programs within the community when the schools are closed. So we're hoping to use this school programme to springboard that stuff. So yeah, that's what we're doing, and hopefully doing more in Wishaw, doing lots and lots in Motherwell and Bellshill, lots of stuff happening there, but hopefully we'll be doing more in Wishaw soon. So if there's any questions, give me a shout.
That has to be one of the shortest updates I think Dan's ever given, so thank you for keeping that brief, Dan. Robert's asking, can you put some times and venues, if you can even put them in the chat bar, so that people know where the groups and the times are for the bikes and blether, etc. That would be fabulous.
Yes.
Thank you. Mary, Partners in Play, do you want to come in?
Yes, I took over as the chair of Partners in Play last year, and it was originally based in the Gowthrappel Centre. Is it Centre Point? Is it called, the building there? Yeah. However, due to changes that were required, they've moved out of Wishaw, but they do have a North Lanarkshire wide remit. So part of where we're at is looking at how we are linking our services to initiatives like the Community Board. Just to give you a bit of background, Partners in Play has over 50 staff. Their main remit is they're mainly funded various things, but the main funding is through self-directed services, and it supports families who have got children or young adults with additional support needs. So there are Wishaw families linking into the service. So as the chair, I'm really keen to look at how things can be improved from what the organisation's got to offer, and also how the families and the young people can be supported locally and link into local organisations or services. Some of the work is also supporting young people in college on a one-to-one basis as well. So from the point of view of the support, it can be from early morning, helping the families get the young people out to whatever service that they might be linking into, or it's a probably a 14-hour day service where our staff go in and take the young people or the young adults out either morning, noon or evening. And we've also recently purchased a caravan down at Cape Tara, brand new caravan for respite on weekends or for a week at a time. So I feel it's a really important service for the community boards to know about. The budget on an annual basis just now, and it is rising, is £500,000 of services that are being purchased. So it's absolutely critical for these vulnerable young people, and desperately the support the families need, to be aware of community board plans and developments, and not to feel excluded. Anybody got any questions?
Thanks for that, Mary. That was fantastic. Dan's got a question.
Oh, right. Hello.
Hi, Mary. At Social Track, we do a lot of work with like BMXs, mountain biking, and skateboarding. And we work a lot with youth.
Yes.
And if there's any way that we could work in partnership or support you with any projects,
yes,
or even getting some of your young people along to some of, we don't have anything in Wishaw at the moment, but we've got programs in Bellshill and Motherwell.
Yes.
If there's any way that we can link up, that would be great.
Yes, certainly it's a good opportunity. Absolutely need as much variety for them as possible, to try and just enjoy, mixing with other people and being taken care of in a different environment.
Yeah, I've put my email address in the chat, Mary. If
Right,
you
Dan.
want to just send me
Okay.
an email. But yeah, any chance that we get to engage with young people with our services is you know, we love. So it's the bread and butter of what we do and why we do it.
Yes, I mean the young people have there's differing support needs, but a lot of them can join in and just be as effective as a young person that might not need that one-to-one support. But it's very, very imperative that we try and find a way to include them.
Yeah, definitely. We are regularly amazed at the abilities of young people who are in need of support in life, who are some of the bravest and talented and intelligent people I've ever met. So yeah, I think it's a very rewarding thing to do, and there's lots to learn as an adult from young people. That's for sure.
Okay, thanks, Dan.
Thanks for that, Mary. And if there's anything that any of the officers here or any of the councillors can do at all, just get in touch. We can
we
always
will
give you the answer, but we can signpost you or get you the help maybe you need. Yep.
As I say, we're trying to develop links out into the wider community and not just a one-to-one. I mean, a lot of the stuff that might have happened in the past was a drive to McDonald's. Well, that's not fair, I think. You know, it's about trying to link them into what's going on in our real world, and trying to enthuse them a
Thanks for
bit.
joining us tonight, and if we can link up with them, I know Robert Owen's on from CLD as well, so if there's anybody that can reach out to Mary or help, then feel free, you know, just give us a wee email, Mary, and we can see where we can help.
I mean, obviously we're heavily linked into social work, who handle a lot of the budgets or manage difficulties in the family setting, so there is an awareness there, but linking into the wider community, I feel, is really important. And going forward, like all the stuff that was being discussed about the active travel and the walkways and the paths, you know, to make it a bit more of an opportunity for them even to go a walk on a safe path is really important. And it helps deal with some of the frustrations that maybe build up when the families aren't really coping very well, you know.
Definitely. And it just links back to what we were saying about the active travel earlier. It's, you know, if you go anywhere else, I had a conversation with a cyclist at the weekend about even them being cyclists, then they don't want to be on the roads. You go abroad and you've got cycle paths, you've got active travel, you've got the networks there in place, and hopefully we can aspire to that. Thanks, Mary. So we're moving on. We have got, I'm just going to invite now James McKinstry, who's our community coordinator, formerly known as community champion, but they've taken that title off you, James. So if you want to give us your update, that'd be fantastic.
Took off me, but I was undefeated at the time. Right, so just want to just give an update on quite a few things that have been happening in the kind of Wishaw area since the last time the board met. So you'll be aware that the Birkinshaw's Tower we're getting refurbished for resettlement of Ukrainian families. So that work has been completed. There is now 24 Ukrainian families living in the towers, with another 12 will be moving in the very near future. And I think that initiative has been very successful, been very much welcomed clearly by the families who have been fleeing the horrors that have been happening in their home country. It's got a lot of attention politically, both locally and nationally as well, and the feedback that's been provided to the housing service who carried out that work has been really positive. The next thing I just want to give a wee brief update is the demolition of some low-rise flats in the Gout Frapple area. I believe there's about 19 blocks in total. So the tender for that work is due to be received. Tenders, sorry, are due to be received by the council imminently, and they'll be assessed, and then hopefully we'll move to contract award and get that work moving forward in the new year. I mentioned the Wishaw Town Action Plan consultation and response to one of the previous discussion items.
The next item which we'll update is the new mains in St Bridget's community hub. So we now have a handover date for that scheduled and a date of occupation. So we expect that the kids and the staff will transfer into the new facility after the February holidays within the school. So we advised local elected members of that. I think it was yesterday or today. We advised local elected members of that, and I think the school is in the process of being updated on that. That's a slight delay on the original date with some issues with getting power into the site, but that's all been resolved now. Paver Cemetery has been discussed in previous meetings of the board, so there's tenders out for the improvements at Paver Cemetery. We expect to get them in on the 23rd of December, and then they'll be assessed and evaluated in January. And again, tenders above a certain value required to be approved by council committee, so will be fed into the next committee cycle, all going well. Just kind of moving off the property side of things at the moment, there was an event held in Motherwell recently developing the young workforce. We all know that the kind of place of work is changing in terms of what the jobs are out there. A lot of jobs in the future in terms of renewable energy, for example. So with about 300 people attending that event, young people, with also school leaders attending it as well, and we also had businesses attending that as well. And that was a whole North Lanarkshire event. The next thing I want to update you on is maybe not so good news. If I'm being honest with you, it's on the town hub. So we after careful consideration, we didn't put a bid in for the Wishaw town hub at this time. Some of the factors that can influence our decision in that way was, as you're aware, if you might be aware, we get 50%. We can apply for up to 50% of funding for a secondary school project. That's quite a bit less than how much funding has been available in the past. So it means the council has to find 50% as well. The hub would cost over £100 million. So you can see the challenges that we've got in finding that money at the time, and we don't have that money within the council at that time, and we estimated that if we were to go and borrow more money to deliver that, it would cost £4 million a year, and we've got extreme revenue challenges in the public sector, as you'll be aware. We estimate that we could be facing something like £75 million reduction in the resources, revenue resources going forward in the next few years. We're finding the current economic conditions are extremely challenging for us to come up with managed funding at this time. We're all aware of the impact of inflation on capital costs. You'll be aware as well that the problems we're having in getting the materials and labour, and even the logistics industry at the moment, shortage of drivers, etc. That's pushing costs up quite a bit. And then we've got the interest rates that have been rising as well. That puts pressure on capital projects going forward. So we had a report at committee, I think it was late September, we had that report. Doesn't mean to say that the Wishaw Town Hub is off the agenda altogether. The council still has an ambition to create a town hub down in Wishaw, so that'll be revisited in the future if we can fund apart from the council, and if the Scottish Government were to open up what's called the LEAP process again. Consideration would be given at that time as to whether we could go in and bid for a project of that scale. We have went and bid for other projects. To be honest, we'll bid for an extension down at Christon High School, and we'll also put a bid in for a new primary school down in Gartcosh as well. Those are two areas where the actual demand in terms of places is really, really high, and we need to get increase the school provision down in those areas because there's more kids being born in the area. Just linked into a couple of points that were made in previous discussions, any town hub that goes forward would be sympathetic to active travel arrangements, and also in the siting of any hub as well would be subject to a statutory education consultation as well, so that so the community would have their say in that as we go forward. So although it's not a project that we're taking forward at the moment, it's not a project that's been killed off, and we'll continue with the feasibility work and other work behind the scenes, so that when an opportunity becomes available to get funding, we've got everything lined up in order that we can move the project forward as soon as we can. I'll probably just pause at that point.
Thanks for James. There was a lot of information there, so that's fab. Dan, you've got your hand up for a question.
Thank you. I'm aware of time, so I'll just make this brief as I can. I just wondered how, as a community group, we would be able to put forward any suggestions for facilities or anything like that, or something that could possibly be discussed by the LDP.
The LDP, can you just maybe just explain what that acronym is to me? Is that a local development plan?
Yes, yeah. LDP, yeah.
Right, okay, so the local development plan, I believe there was consultation of the local development plans earlier this year, so that's been carried out, Dan, and that's about areas where, you know, housing could perhaps go, etc., areas where there could be further, business growth, etc. So that's all been fed in. The council currently has an updated local development plan, but as a board,
Leanne's going to give us a wee update on it in a minute as well, so she's going to come in after that and do a wee update.
So just to clarify the distinction, what James is talking about is the local development plan. What I'll talk about is the local development programme. It is a bit confusing. That's our capital funding, but obviously that's the more strategic plan around planning that James is talking about. So just to clarify the distinction there.
I might be confused there. Then I'm thinking of facilities, things like the parks and things like that that get talked about.
I think that's more linked into the local development programme, Dan, I think, which
right, okay.
Leanne's going to cover in a minute.
Right, okay, sorry.
Mark, do you have a question?
Actually, Chair, it was a legacy hand for the, well, I say legacy hand, it was for the update section. I guess just to update on our own developments, but...
right, sorry, I missed you then, Mark.
That's all right, no worries at all.
Can I bring you in after? We'll just check that there's no more questions there just now for James.
Yeah, I'm going to suggest that, to be honest.
I'll bring you in. Yep. Anything else? Do you want to ask James any more questions? Nope. Thanks very much for the update then, James. You're still a community champion, even if we're not allowed to call you that anymore. Right, Mark, do you want to go ahead and give us a wee update?
Yeah, cheers, Leanne. Sorry, apologies, Fiona. So I was just turning my hand off there. So yeah, about a year ago, we founded a social enterprise which we've called My Town, My Community, and the basic premise of what we're trying to do has got two main threads to it. One is to support localised trade through an e-commerce platform and allow people to access local products and services all online in one digital space. But the premise being that it's asset locked for community benefit. So if you could imagine taking something like a Just Eat or a localised Amazon,
can you delete it?
Interacting with local traders, that any surplus that was generated from that would come back into local communities.
Can I just get you to mute just now? It's just people over there. Thanks. Okay. Sorry, Mark.
That's all right. No worries at all. So I guess, like I say, it's like almost like a sort of community version of Just Eat. And we've spoken to, I guess, a number of different people. I'm just catching up with the notes there, Gary, so it'd be great to get a chat in with you. But I have previously spoken about our aims and visions with Leanne, and I think more recently with people directly in your team in the form of Vicky and Colin. But I think since I last spoke with Vicky, there's definitely a couple of things that we're looking to really put back on the map and drive forward now. And I guess the main reason being for that is that we've been awarded seed funding to do a proof of concept through Unlimited, who are one of the main startup funders for social enterprise. We were initially met really positively by Firstport, and they said we were better than anything that they'd seen for a startup application. The only problem is they didn't believe that we could build their aspiration with the £5,000 that they had on offer, and they did invite us to apply for 50. However, at that point, you then need a 12-page business plan and a 3-year profit and loss, as opposed to a good idea and a good heart. So we do now have a business plan through some support through the Accelerate programme at Community Enterprise. We do have some seed funding, and I guess the way we've gone about that is, as opposed to trying to build a platform in the first instance, what we're hoping to do is to work with one clearly identified local trader almost as a proof of concept. And I think looking to do a bit of a reach out to some of the groups on the call, and I'm quite sure other ones in the Wishaw area, that the premise here will be in the first instance that that any surplus that's created, we would look to almost offer. I don't know if you want to still a bit of background noise there.
What did you say? Can I ask everyone on the meeting, if you're not speaking just now, can you maybe mute, because we are getting a lot of feedback?
I'll check, Chair, as well. I can put people on.
You could put people on mute, then that would be fantastic, Leanne, yeah.
Yes, I think, I guess what I was hoping to say there is that, you know, for other groups out there, you know, we're very much what we are focused on is trade and revenue generation. And I think, you know, what we're not here to do is to duplicate the work of other groups. So our preference in the fullness of time would be to distribute our funds, perhaps mirroring something like the participatory budgeting process that the council and other local authorities are using. But in the first instance, as an onboarding tool, I think what we're hoping to do is to offer out to local community groups the opportunity to steer people towards consuming from local traders, put forward their group name, and essentially anybody that they introduce to the programme that makes a purchase would then see revenue coming back towards supporting you know, whatever their imminent ask is at that current time, so that it's creating a sort of a short-term funding stream for local projects, I guess, until such time as we can sort of further develop the conversation. I guess the other part of it, so that's probably my town, but we've called my town my community. So I guess in terms of my community, it's much more about how do we digitally enable people to have a discussion about what's happening in their own town and what do they want to see happening in their own town. And I think the motivation or the reason d'etre for doing that is that, you know, we believe that for communities to move forward sustainably, that a lot of that pertains to localised ownership of land and assets, and that local people would be leading on deciding what that looks like. So we're really hoping to lead that process through the One Wishaw campaign that we're looking to establish and host that digitally. And I guess as an example of that, I think it was it Mary that was at Partners in Play earlier on was speaking. You know, we had some requests at the One Wishaw event to say, you know, could people access, could there be more services for people with autism, you know? So rather than us actually looking to take that forward, I think it's about how do we connect with, like, say, Partners in Play to steer people towards activity that they've got and stuff. So yeah, I guess going forward, Gary, I think it would be great to get another catch up with yourself and Vicky. And I think now that we're a funded initiative, you know, we're really keen to come forward to I guess all aspects of the board and promote the work that we're trying to do and further develop that in partnership with the board, so that I guess it meets in with the plans that the council and other groups have got locally.
Thanks very much, Mark. That's great. Any questions to Mark? Happy to move on. Sorry for missing you there, Mark. So got there.
That's all right, no worries.
Got there eventually. So we're going to hand the floor now to Vicky. Sorry, Leanne. Leanne has got the last few agenda points, so I'll just let you carry on and work your way through them, and we'll just take some questions in between them if that's okay, Leanne. So we've got the local development programme is up first. Okay, thanks, Leanne.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. This is just I'll be very brief. This is just the standard report that comes to every community board around the local development programme. But I suppose just to clarify to people, for anyone new to the board, etc., the local development programme, and it is confusing because we do refer to it as LDP and other people do refer to the local development plan as the LDP, which is not ideal, but it's a capital programme, and it's really about, it can only be used for capital projects on council land, but it's very much about locally driven projects and quite small scale community-led activity. It can cover a range of projects from parking, play provisions, heritage features, play parks, kind of community kind of spaces for communities to use for a number of reasons, and community safety as well. So the funding for Moto X has come through the local development programme. Communities are really encouraged to identify projects through the completion of a proposal form. That enables us to gather the basic information. So we've really tightened that up recently. So it used to be that ideas would come forward, we would bring them to the community board and we would have them approved in principle, and then we would go and do the work. But sometimes projects, for a number of reasons, couldn't be progressed in the format that they had originally been put forward. We've really tightened that up. So what we do now is through the proposal form that community organisations or working with elected members, the forum would be completed, and what that enables us to gather basic information to ensure that the project meets the basic criteria. So is it something that could be funded before we progress to any more detailed feasibility or development work? And that just means that nothing will come to the community board for discussion or to look at support for the community board until we're clear that it's something that can actually potentially be funded. There's still work to be done after that around, making sure that there is wider community support at times, and making sure sometimes when we look at projects, the costs are much higher than we maybe originally anticipated, etc. But there's a lot of work that goes on through local development programme with local organisations and with a number of partners involved. So local development programme is a 5-year programme. We're currently in year 2. So the budget for the year for Motherwell is 151,605. As far as I'm aware, unless Gary or Vicky want to correct me, as far as I can see, we're not seeking approval for any specific additional projects tonight. Where we're at for this year's allocation is really getting the projects delivered, the projects that we've committed to, getting them delivered and kind of out the door and the budget committed. You'll see on the report and the appendices, there are some projects that are at kind of different stages. Some are complete, some were kind of just going out to tender. And some of the projects we're looking at more prioritising and over the next few years, if there may be bigger projects or projects that have came to us a bit later on. We would always encourage local groups to engage with us regarding any project ideas that they think merit consideration within the criteria, and the criteria is outlined within the report, and we can advise and support throughout the process. So we can't guarantee that everything will get funded, but we certainly want to engage with groups around ideas that they've got. I suppose even where ideas are not applicable in relation to the LDP, we're more than happy to look at alternative potential funding for specific projects, or alternative proposals where maybe it's something that just can't be developed on council land, or it's something that we just wouldn't support in relation to our policies and things. So just putting out there that we really would encourage you to come and speak to us, probably coming via Vicky and Gary in the first instance. So any ideas that link into the LOIP priorities specifically, we're really keen in making sure that any resources that we've got help us to support those LOIP priorities. So we, is there things that we can do around improved community safety, environmental improvements, small scale, but having in mind that wider environmental impact priority across the board. So I'm happy to take any comments or questions, or for people just to engage with us on a one-to-one basis out with the meeting, conscious of time. Thank you.
No hands there, I think you can move on, Leanne. So and thanks for that update. Oh, sorry, right at the last minute, Dan Scott comes in and puts his hand up.
Leanne, is that simply just sending you an email? Is that to start the conversation?
Yeah, that's the starting point. If you want to just make contact with a member of the team, we can send you the proposal form and look at it. Depends on the type of project, whether we need to come out and have a look at the site. We've got project officers that might want to come out and offer some technical advice and things like that. But the starting point is always engaging with the local team through Gary and Vicky, just to get the conversation going and they can share the forum with you.
Oh, magic! Great, thanks, Leanne.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do you want to move on to the budget consultation?
Yes, I've just got a couple of things under AOCB, but they're very brief, so I'll just let them run into each other and take
Just
questions
let them
at the end.
Through, Leanne. Yeah, that's fine.
Perfect, thank you. So the first one we've got is that. I'll find my notes here. So the Council is currently holding a series of online budget engagement focus groups to better understand community priorities and provide local people with the opportunity to feed into the important decisions about services and budgets. So the focus group for Wishaw is on Monday, which is very close to the community board meeting. Information has been circulated. That will have come from the Community Matters mailbox. So the Wishaw session is Monday the 5th of December, 6:30 till 8 PM, and it's a Microsoft Teams. So if you would like to get involved, please send an email or even just let us know tonight if you want. Let us know if you want to be involved, or email communitymatters@northland.gov.uk, and maybe Gary or Vicky could just shove that on the chat bar while I'm speaking, just to
Gary's
make sure
beat me
people
to it,
can.
it's already there,
Oh,
Leanne.
brilliant! I'm reading my notes, so I can't see. So provide your contact information in the area focus group you want to attend, so it'd be Wishaw for this area. But I know that there's people on the call that maybe would link into other Motherwell or Shotts as well. If you require any information or support, just let us know, and we'll come back to you. The other items that I've got, it has been mentioned throughout the night, but just to highlight two you had put on the chat bar earlier, the link to the community drop-in points. So that's obviously in relation to just helping people with cost of living this year, but also just providing places for people to go and mix. So the council, along with voluntary sector organisations, have identified over 100 community drop-in points. So that includes a mix of some of the North Lanarkshire facilities, so some of the leisure facilities, libraries, etc., where people can just pop in and get a cup of tea and have a seat and a chat and just to get out of the house for a while. All the council facilities are that are listed on the map have at least free tea and coffee available. However, there's an enhanced community provision. I think that's been referenced throughout the night. But there are a number of voluntary organisations across the Wishaw area who have set up community drop-in points with warm drinks. Some are providing kind of light snacks and things like that, and activities. So we've put the link in the chat bar, and I can't see just now because I'm looking at my notes, but we can maybe just put that in again to make it easy for people. Information has been circulated again if people have got any questions. There's also a link to the cost of living wider kind of support and information for local people. The next item was just to bearing in mind that the community boards are part of the community planning process in North Lanarkshire. Obviously, community planning is how community organisations work together with public sector agencies at a very senior level, but also at a very local level, to make sure that where we share priorities, we're all working together and making best use of resources. So at a local level, that's like your LOIPs. At a more strategic level, that's about the plan for North Lanarkshire ultimately, and all the key partners working together. So bearing in mind that community boards are part of that process in North Lanarkshire, I just wanted to highlight to you that there's currently a Scottish Parliamentary inquiry into community planning. So community planning is enshrined in the Community Empowerment Act. So there is legislation that supports how that's delivered. So I will share a link, so because there's a survey underway that's specifically, so they're looking for community planning partners to be involved, but they're specifically looking for communities as well, or those who are involved in different parts of the community planning structures at different levels, to be involved and to give their views. So I will share a copy of that link in just a wee minute. I'm just getting that up. And I would urge you to go on and have your say in relation to shaping what community planning will look like moving forward. There's the link there. And this information has been shared, but we'll be happy to share it again. And if you don't mind, Chair, I've got one more item that isn't on the agenda. Can I just cover that very briefly?
Of course you can. Go for it.
So it's just to make you aware that there is a review just about to start across the 9 community board areas to make sure that the community boards can continue to develop and be effective in relation to the changed landscape and all the different things that are happening within communities, and we're able to respond and work together around the best possible outcomes for local communities. It's an opportunity for community board members and those who have been involved in community boards to reflect on the journey that they've been on so far, what's worked well, what challenges remain, what we can do to improve things, and what we want to build on that already works well. So the review will be organised around 4 key themes. So it'll be around focus, so how the community board ensures that its work delivers impact for the benefit of local people and communities. The second, interaction, so how well the relationships and behaviours between community board members supports critical conversations and effective impacts on effective decision making. People, so how is the board selected, organised, resourced, developed and run? And the fourth one is alignment, so how policy, systems and governance aligns to enable the boards to be involved in decision making and local action. So the view of all board participants is being sought to provide an input to this review, and it's really important that everybody's views are represented. So we'll be looking at an online survey which will be issued mid-December with a completion date of January to mid to end of January. All responses will be anonymous, and the board participants are encouraged to provide an honest, evidence-based response to the survey. As well as the community boards, we're also going to be seeking views from community board participants at that kind of more strategic level. So the North Lanarkshire Strategic Leadership Board, which is the chief executives of all the public sector agencies that are involved in community plan, and all of the support officers as well. And this is to ensure that views and perspectives are are relevant across the kind of different elements of what we need to do to support community boards, local groups. So the initial outputs of the review will be shared with community boards at the first cycle of their meetings next year in 2023. The review is being led by the council, and as with all reviews of this nature, the council will assign an independent champion to provide leadership, commitment, motivation and recognition to support the purpose and the benefits, and to ensure that the results, the improvements that are agreed are actioned, and that those are valid and used to inform improvement to what around what the boards are ultimately there aiming to achieve. So therefore the champion in this occasion will be Ken Adamson, who is the Head of Audit and Risk for the Council, and he can be contacted on, I'll put his email address in the chat bar. The online survey will be sent to you from Ken, so just to make that clear, it won't come necessarily from myself or one of the officers you recognise. It will come from Ken Adamson, because it is about us having that independent kind of approach and making sure that it's this review is delivered in a really independent way that focuses on outcomes and not individuals. So we will be sharing information on that over the coming weeks. And it was just to raise awareness so that when that email does come out from Ken Adamson, you know what it's about. But if you've got any questions in the meantime, please just don't hesitate to let us know.
Thank you, Leanne. Have we got any questions for Leanne or any other items for AOCB or anything we've not covered tonight, the MD pressing that wants to raise? Oh, Mark, there you go, right at the desk. Can you go?
Just quickly, Fiona, was just this. I know you'd said like if we were interested in attending on Monday to make that known, so definitely be keen to get involved in that where possible. And if there's any further information about the next digital subgroup as well, I think that would be really useful to have. I think there's one other thing I was going to say. Yeah, and I guess I know Dan was making an inquiry there, Leanne, in terms of saying, like, do we just send you an email? Like, if you've got stuff around the LDP that you're in a position to share straight off the bat, then it would be great to have a wee look at the criteria for that, so that we can have a think about how we fit or don't and come back.
Yeah, no worries. So firstly, absolutely, you can participate on Monday. We'll get you added into the list and get the invite sent to you, and if anybody's else is interested, please let us know. Your point about LDP, the kind of overview, the criteria is in the report that was shared with the papers. But in terms of
I can just access through that.
Yeah.
Right,
and in terms of engaging around specific projects, please just make contact with us and let us know. And I can't remember what your second point was. Sorry.
That's all right. I think that pretty much.
Does that cover it? Sorry.
That's great.
Oh, the digital subgroup. Yeah. So all I would say about the digital subgroup is that there isn't a digital subgroup for Wishaw as such. The way that we're looking at digital right now, I'm not saying that's always going to be the case, but the way we look at digital right now is that there's a driving digital locally subgroup. So there's a representative, or at least one representative for each community board area. They come together to look across North Lanarkshire and to make sure that the views of the local community board are fed in, and any wider developments are fed into the community board, and that feeds local action. The person for Wishaw is... Who's the person for Wishaw? Douglas. I think Douglas is he feeds in. But I think you know, if you wanted to be more involved in that, there wouldn't be any issue with that. So again, just reach out to us and we'll have a conversation with you about that.
I'll definitely try and touch base with Douglas. I think I've maybe had a couple of emails about it, so I'll definitely I'll go back through that. But I think it'd be good to get a touch base with Douglas, because it's been probably since the pandemic since we last spoke. So we're obviously funded now and looking to stride forward. So I think it's definitely a time we'll be back in touch with you know, with both the subgroup and Vanel about how we fit within those agendas.
Great, Mark.
Fabulous. Thanks, Mark.
Feel free to drop me an email. The next meeting of the Driving Digital locally subgroup is a week tomorrow, so I can maybe pass the details over about that.
Magic.
Thanks very much, Douglas. It's my colleague Jean who covers digital for Wishaw, but she's been off ill for quite some time, so I'm stepping in tonight on her behalf.
Okay. So thank you to Vicky, Gary, Leanne and James tonight. Obviously they provide all the reports and the updates for us, so we meet here, but they do all the hard work behind the scenes. So feel free to make them work harder and drop them a line, and you know, they'll certainly get back to you, or they can signpost you to wherever it is needed. So thanks again for your work, guys. It's been a long night, but hopefully it's been, you know, fruitful. We've learned a lot from each other as well and what's been going on. So thank you for your participation, everyone for attending, whether it's groups or individuals. Thank you for taking the time out. It's St Andrew's Day, so it's only November, but tomorrow really starts Christmas. We've got December tomorrow, so I suppose that's when we start talking the big C being Christmas, but I'm also very conscious it's not a happy time for everyone. So I think we've already said that today, you know, that so it's great to see all these groups and communities coming together really for what some people it is a difficult time of the year, and not necessarily for celebrating. So again, thank you for all your hard work that you're doing in the communities, and for your communities, and let's network and make it a bit happier if we can for everyone, and the emergency services as well. You know, thanks again, and pass on your thanks to all your staff, your volunteers, you know, from everybody here as well for all the work that's been done in all the groups. So I think that kind of brings us to an end. And if there's anything that the councillors can do, you've got our contact details, you've got all the team's details. Please don't hesitate to get in touch. And it's going to be the new year before we see each other. So Merry Christmas, hopefully when it comes, and we'll see you in the new year. So thanks again for your participation tonight. See you later. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Cheers, guys. Have a good night.